What do you think? What game would you like to compose music for?
Just one?
Probably not.
Well, my sort of like my dream job would be to work on Halo franchise. That is what got me into gaming music. Yeah, that is what inspired me. And like, if I could just talk to someone from 343 Industries and sort of like ask them, like, I don't know, just like one piece of ambient music, in a world of Halo, that would be like a lifetime achievement for me. And see, here's an interesting thing. I worked together with the man who composed music for Halo, with Michael Salvatori. The way that I got my very first AAA project was in 2014, which is like 10 years ago.
No, it's 11 actually. Let me make you feel
God, I'm old. But in October of 2014, I will never forget that day. I was attending an Audio Engineering Society conference in Los Angeles, in the United States, and on the hallway of this of the LA Convention Center, where E3 was used to be organized. It's that big convention center. So it's I meet Marty O'Donnell. Marty O'Donnell, who composed the actual theme for Halo, and then later he was joined by Michael Salvatori on Halo 2, and I was like, I see the person coming towards me. I was like, I was standing like somebody nailed me to the ground, and I'm seeing it. My first comment was, "Holy fuck, you're Marty O'Donnell."
Oh my god.
That was my, and he was like, "Last time I checked, yes, my name is Marty O'Donnell." and he's like, I was like, "My name is Nikola. You're the main reason why I want to become a video game composer. Can I take a picture with you?" And he was kind enough to take a picture with me, and I posted it on Facebook. 3 days later, I get a friend request on Facebook by Mike Salvatori, who was at that time the audio director of Bungie Studio. Uh-huh. Marty O'Donnell left Bungie after first Destiny game was published. They fell out, and then kind of like he left the studio. Mike was left to be the audio director together with his team, and he sort of like, we talked together through Facebook, and he got interested into kind of like hearing my music. I sent him some at that time very poor demos, and he liked them very much, and he said, like, "Look, I'm going to give you a job application for Bungie, just to have you in our database, and if something happens in the near future, I would sort of like think of you." And I was like, like, Mike Salvatori is interested in my music, and that was enough for me at that time. 2 years later, 2016, it was June 7th. I get a message on Facebook from Mike Salvatori. "Hey, Nick, are you able to sign an NDA? And I'd like to talk to you about something on Skype if you're available."
This is how it happens.
I'm like, "Yes, of course, I'm able. Send me an NDA." I was like, I kept my poker face, I signed that NDA, and then I started twisting like Homer Simpson on the floor in the circle, like, "Oh my god, no, and then he calls me on Skype, and he said, like, "Well, okay, now that you have signed an NDA, I can tell you about this. We are starting to develop Destiny 2. It should come out in April next year." That was 2017. Or was it in September? In September of 2017. We have another spot on the music team for Destiny 2, and I'd like you to be a part of this team. And I was like, okay, okay. Yeah, like, are you interested? Like, fuck yeah, I'm interested. You know, and we signed an agreement, and we started working on Destiny 2. And that's how my sort of like I put my foot in the AAA. And at that same time, that same year. Now get this, that same year, I met in person Marcin Shibilovic, the audio director of CD Projekt Red.
Oof.
And I was, my involvement with Witcher Wild Hunt is like this. In 2015, CD Projekt Red organized a competition, a public competition for music producers and composers who could do remixes and cover versions of tracks from Witcher Wild Hunt. So CD Projekt Red, they provided stems and stuff like that, instrumental tracks that you can remix and do your own stuff. So I applied for that, and I talked to Marcin. We known each other via Facebook, you know, for a couple of months before that, but we never talked in person. So I sent him my remix, my cover version of those ethnic Slavic pieces from Witcher Wild Hunt, which at that time I was listening to a lot of Arcona, the Russian folk metal band, and I wanted to create something like that. So like a heavy metal version with Slavic instrument, traditional, with like, you know, gadulkas and gusli and everything, you know, and those traditional Slavic voices and everything, and heavy metal guitars and drums and bass. And I sent them that, and Marcin loved it very much, so he included that into that compilation. And in 2016, after I signed this agreement with Bungie, I went to Game SoundCon conference in LA, and Marcin and Nikolai Stransky were the two composers of Witcher Wild Hunt at that time. They were giving their lecture and workshop on how they worked on Wild Hunt music and everything. We sat down, we talked quite a lot, and a year later, or maybe again 2 years later, Marcin and I talked, and then I got into Cyberpunk. I did like one track for Cyberpunk, and the way that I got this thing for Cyberpunk is that I saw the announcement of Cyberpunk trail, the Keanu Reeves announcement. That was 2018. Yeah. And I immediately, as soon as the trailer finished, Keanu Reeves jumps on the stage. I'm on Facebook. I'm texting Marcin, listen, I want to work on Cyberpunk. I will do whatever it takes. At least one track, whatever you have. I will do bar music, whatever. I just want to be a part of this world and a part of the project with Keanu Reeves. So he was like, okay, we'll find something, you know. So we did that. We did that. Like, I have this one track in Cyberpunk, but it's like, you know. So working on, to go back from this long digression, I would definitely love to work on Halo. I would love to work with Sony Studios on their games, especially with Sony Santa Monica, like, you know, like stuff like God of War and you know, Uncharted, The Last of Us. Those are the types of games the game that I enjoyed the most, and which, aside from Halo, you know, but my second most favorite game is Ghost of Tsushima. I would, you know, I don't know, like, I will work in a mine if I have a chance to get in touch with the developers from Sucker Punch, just to have like at least one track of music in Ghost of Yote.
They are creating a sequel, yeah.
You know, in the sequel, I would love to be a part of that game. I trained Japanese sword fight, and I'm very much into their culture and everything. I would definitely love to work on that. Souls-like games, I worked on a couple. I worked on 2 games by Cradle Games. They're called Hellpoint, which is like a sci-fi, dark, grim future of inspired by Dark Souls. But what else? Yeah, this game that Naughty Dog is working on right now. I forgot the name, but Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are composing music for it. They're my contemporary musical heroes because 9 Inch Nails. And I would love to be able to have a chance to work on this game with it. There's a lot of games that I would love to work on, actually, but a lot of games that inspire me to work on, to play, to listen music. I'd love to work on Assassin's Creed title. I'd love to work on a Call of Duty title. Those are all the games that I love playing, and Halo, Elder Scrolls, anything by, or any franchise that sort of like, is very dear. So I got to work on Aliens, Dark Descent. Aliens is like a thing for me. I got to work on Warhammer. So that's like one scratch off the list. I'd love to work on the next Witcher, for example, for sure. I still have to get in touch with them about that. Hopefully, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it will happen in like 7 years that they need to make the game. They just announced it, but if you remember, Cyberpunk was announced in 2015 or 2014, something like that. It was like release date when it's ready. So, you know how they have long times of talk, but those are and I'd love to work on any games that you guys are working on.
Well, wishing you luck with all those AAA projects.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds big, to be honest. Like, all of the names that you kind of spoke out are very big. But you've set your foot in AAA already, so...
Yeah.
My biggest challenge in this business is, networking. I'm a very introvert person, and I am rarely attending conferences or something, mostly due to the immense amount of work that I have, and sometimes I'm not able to travel to like these bigger conferences in Europe or in United States, but locally here in Belgrade, in Novi Sad, whatever, I can always, jump and see people and talk to. But, networking and, talking to game producers and game directors is something that was kind of like always a gray area for me, because I'd love to hear like what is it, for example, how to capture an attention of like a game producer, of a person who's pulling the strings in game production more than with a CEO, for example, because the way that I understand gaming business is that CEOs are there to kind of like run the company, but the creative people who are behind the games are creative producers, artists.
For sure.
Mostly creative producers are the guys who are talking to creatives and to freelancers and outsourcing people to studios to help them. It's either an audio director or a creative producer. That's the way that's the way that I always had kind of like my experience is that, and that's the way that I understand it. I'm more of an artist than a businessman, and I understand that in this work you also need to be a businessman. So I still need to learn how to best
sell yourself,
sell my craft, and sell my story, because I go, from my own personal experience, I would hate if someone approached me and said like, can you give me a job? And I'm like, it's not like immediately when you approach these people, it's like, the way that I approach it is like, what it is that I can offer to you and what it is that I can bring to your team and to your project more than what you can give me. Like I always approached that, and this is the advice that I can give to many, game professionals that are starting out, not just composers or sound designers, but even artists, programmers, modelers, whatever, the best way that you can approach to getting a job is that see what it is that you have in your skill set that can be crucial to your employer, and offer yourself without expecting anything in return. In that way, basically, that's how I got motivated to work in the gaming industry. It is like I wanted to be a part of this, and I wanted to satisfy and feed the hunger that I have for telling stories and for composing music for stories, more than being rich and famous and whatever it is. I live and breathe music every day, and it is the way that I the way that I approach this is basically what it is that I can give to you more than what it is that I can get from you. People don't like this way of approach. Like, and this is what I always am picking. I'm always thinking in my head and double checking my approach to a potential client. Especially when writing to someone for the first time. It's like, hey, I'm this, I'm that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And it's very complicated. It's like I always get the feeling that I'm approaching people like that I'm asking something, and I wasn't raised in such a way that I always go and ask people, even though many game professionals have told me, like, you don't know until you asked, So I always approach this like, would you be interested in reviewing my portfolio? And I still approach every new client like it's the biggest opportunity of my life. No matter the projects that I worked on, every project that I work on, I treat it with the same importance, regardless of the budget, regardless of the name of the studio that it is, regardless of the people who are working there. I give my 100% to a mobile game the same way that I would do it for a AAA game. That's the point. That's the approach that I can advise to young people who would want to be a part of this industry.
Right. I mean, that's very helpful, isn't it? It's kind of psychological thing, but also, if you implement that, then you're all set.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like a cowboy standoff, especially when you're talking about budget. Like, what's your rate? What's your budget? What's your rate? What's your budget? Yeah, so it's always, I mean, the way that I approach is like, I don't think that much about the money that I can get out of this game project, more than like, let's create a story. Like I said, I'm a storyteller. Let's create a story together, and let's make an agreement that will benefit us both. So let's say I can say my rates are this and this.
Yeah.
They can immediately, they could immediately withdraw from this because, like, well, it's too expensive for us. And that is the way that I always, the way that now I'm approaching is like, my rates are like this, but tell me what is your budget, and let us see what we can do to find a middle ground that will suit the both of us, so that we can create something good together, so that we're all satisfied. That is the reason why I got into video games, to kind of like be a part of creative processes and share the inspiration and artwork with hundreds of other people.
I have a question which might be a bit dumb, and I'm sorry for that, but
there are no dumb
questions. This is what I'm here for. So basically, as I see the process from my side, the client comes to me when everything is the idea is kind of there already, and there is something left out that they want to outsource or outstaff, they need our help with. and then we step in. We co-develop, we produce art, we localize the game, we test it, we do the stuff. But how does it work with creating music for the game?
It all
What
depends.
stage are they coming to you at?
Oh, there are no rules. There were projects where I was introduced at the GDD stage, you
Yeah.
know, and there are projects where I was introduced in the middle ground. Like, we have a demo ready, we have sound,
Yeah.
we have everything, but we need music for it. And if it works good, we'll continue working on the music for it. It's usually like that. I am never approached when the game is in its late stages, because they're already filled, with music and with sound and everything. But it's usually either at a concept stage or either at, like, we have a working demo.
Yeah.
Now we need music for it, and if it all works out, let's continue working on that.
Yeah, how do you know if it works out? So basically, I know the concept of test jobs in the industry, right? So the client comes to you and he says, I want this like concept art. Can we make a test job? We give you small piece of what we need. And then you do it, they pay you for it, and they see if they want to continue with you or not. How does it work with music? You cannot create a 10-second sample and deliver it and be like, okay, you get the rest if you pay me. But like, how does it work?
It's called a music pitch, basically. So it's like 1 minute of music, 2 minutes. It's usually around like a 1 minute of music idea that you send to a client. That's the way that I'm approaching to a project right now. Like, we're still at this concept music stages where we're thinking about many genres, many positions, because this game is very, very unique. It's very, we tried traditional approaches. It didn't work out. Now we're trying something unorthodox, and, so it's usually like that. They send me, for example, the GDD. They send me the concept artwork.
Yeah.
And they send me, like, for example, they ask me, like, for example, these are the music examples that we think that would fit. Can you create us like a musical theme that would represent our game musically? And that's the way that I do it. That's the way that I approach it. And then we go, like, when you have this, it's like a concept art for music, And once we are over that, then we go into developing it into like a main menu theme, the main melody theme, leitmotif, stuff like that. And then we go into gameplay. Then we define how the gameplay should work, how the musical system will work, what they need. And it's different from developer to developer. It's usually, some people like to have like traditional, just one piece of music, like a piece of music that loops infinitely.
Yeah.
Others love to have, for like a gameplay, a playlist of various ambient music that will play in the background, and playlist of various combat music that will play in the background.
Yeah.
Some people like an interactive music system that's, like for like a AAA or for a high budget indie game or something like that. And that's the way that it's always different. But it all starts at a concept stage for music. But the approach begins with either a GDD document with some concept art, or with a gameplay demo that needs music.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Thank you for clarifying that. I have another question which might sound a bit uncomfortable, but I just want to ask it. So basically, you said it depends on the developer, right? Whether you go further or not. Have you ever had a situation where, like, the developer, you kind of agreed on something at first, but then, they gave up on the project, or something happened, you got interrupted?
Yeah. It happens all the time. It happens every year. I have at least one project that's a dropout. And it's not because, it's usually not because the music was. There were situations where my music was not up to task, and I never felt sort of like, you feel hurt at with that, but rejections are a part of day-to-day life. I needed to grow up when I became a composer. Composing and working in this industry made me grow up substantially because when I was young and when I was starting out, I remember 6 years ago, or now it's 9 years ago. No, 7 years ago. Well, 6 and 9 are it's just the other way around. Okay, I was bad at math at school. Yeah. I failed math class at my university because I was playing Mass Effect Trilogy like crazy, and I forgot to show up for math test, for the math exam, and I had to apply for math exam for the next semester. So, but I was Captain Shepard, so Commander Shepard. Yeah. But no, sorry, it wasn't worth. But there were situations in 2018. I remember I was living in a rented apartment with my girlfriend at the time. She's my wife right now. And we were living in a small rented apartment. And I will not lie to you, but I believe I sent 1,150 emails to various developers. Out of those 1,150, I got reply from 20. Out of those 20, I was rejected 15.
Oh, that hurts.
Those 5 are my clients even today. The other 5 who accepted are my clients even today.
But that's cool. I mean, the conversion rate is not that high, but I mean, they're long-lasting.
Yeah.
You managed to keep them.
But,
that's cool.
It helped me put my foot through the door.
Yeah.
And, I have only 2 AAA projects that I worked on. That's Destiny and that's Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
And I still talk to people from AAA industry. And even from AAA and from high-budget indie, from AA, I get rejected. Here's, for example, I got rejected for Space Marine 2, and I'm the guy who worked on so many Warhammer 40,000 games. But why was I rejected? Because they already had a composer.
You were too late, huh?
Yeah, I was late. Most of my rejections are because I was late, because, the game development is such a secretive business that you don't know who's doing what until you see an announcement trailer on YouTube or something.
True.
And then you approach them. So it's very difficult to reach out to new clients. And it's mostly my success so far has been word to mouth. So getting rejected is a part of my work all the time. And I was working on many games that, I mean, I wasn't working on them obviously because I got rejected, but I applied to a lot and I was approached by a lot of developers. And every year there's at least there's just this one project that really hurts me, and it was like last year. It dropped out. Well, maybe it dropped out, but it was rejected by the publisher, and then the studio lost their financing and everything. And we made such great music for this because the story is something that I enjoyed very much, which was like a combination of high fantasy music that's like for, I don't know, Dragon Age and that kind of music, like Dragon Age meets hard rock and heavy metal and blues and medieval tavern music. And it was a dream project for me. I played like 5 instruments on that. I played electric guitar, I played Irish bouzoukis, I played cymbalums, I played violins on that and stuff, percussions, synthesizers, big symphony orchestra, everything. The music was so good, we were all happy with it. And then we're out of budget. The publisher is also making. It was at that period of large, firings from gaming industry, where like more than like 5,000 people lost their jobs.
Mhm.
It was one of that, and one that project dropped, and it still hurts me even today. But it was such an amazing project. It
Yeah.
was such an amazing project, and I had so much fun working on it. I remember I worked 18 hours a day
Oh.
on music on that not because I needed to, just because I wanted to. I really enjoyed it. I really, really, really enjoyed working on that.
Yes.
There will be new
Sorry.
projects.
Yeah, there will be new projects your way for
There will
sure. And
be.
sorry about that. Yeah.
Of course, and some projects will, get accepted. Some projects will, be
Yeah.
declined. It's a part of, like
Part
when you
of
go
the
into
process.
when yeah.
Just one last question from me, probably.
Mhm.
You mentioned you like guitar, you like prefer it over the other instruments.
Yes.
Are you a fan of Latko Stefanovski by any chance?
Yes.
Oh, okay, of
Yes.
course.
I actually met him. Of course.
Yeah.
I actually met him in person. He's such an amazing man.
He is. I'm pretty sure he is.
Probably the last question from us today.
Yes.
The visionary one.
Yeah.
Like,
Prophecy.
what do you think? Yes, within 5 to 10 years, what the gaming industry will look like?
Ooh, tough one. The way that I see it this way, I can see how it will. The answer that I can give is I can see how it will look like if things don't change.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The current situation in the gaming industry is not exactly particularly good in my opinion. There was a speech by CEO from Larian Studios at the latest Game Award shows. I'm sure you probably listened to it. And what he said that the next game of the year will be next year. And he said that the game of the year will be the game that cares about its workers, about its developers, will be a game by a studio that cares about its employees. It will be a game that cares about, it will be a game by a studio that cares about its players.
Yeah.
And it will be a game by a studio that cares more about telling a great story and making an impact in the gaming industry than chasing for revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the gaming industry in the last 5 years is a massive revenue chase. And I think that the game, if it continues as a revenue chase in the next 5 years, it will not look good. The way what the gaming industry needs to do is to pay more attention to storytelling and to creating and to being in touch with the community of their fans and listening to what the fans want, more than trying to create the next Fortnite. The way that gaming industry will look like in 5 years, if it doesn't cure this disease of revenue chase and remakes of the remakes, will not bode well for neither the game studios nor us players, the fans.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, we've covered all the questions probably. So, thank you so much for coming to us tonight, and thank you everyone for listening to us. And like, subscribe, comment as usual.
Thank you
Links,
for
yeah.
thank you for making me a part of this, for inviting me